All right. All right. So this is a continuation of the what we learned yesterday at 3:00 in the afternoon. I put it up on YouTube, and it's a speech that was given by the Rebbe in 1982, Tavshin Mem Beit, and it's about this week's Torah portion. Anyways, here's Abba. This week's Torah portion. So this is what we learned yesterday in the afternoon. It's a speech given in 1982 by the Rebbe, and it's talking about the name of this week's Torah portion, which is called Emor. Now, it's a very important principle in Hasidic Judaism, in Chabad. Chabad looks at the world and at God and what is a Jew, so a little bit differently than everybody else, even the other Hasidic groups in Judaism. And according to Chabad, everything is very dynamic, and we have tremendous responsibility. Every Jew has a tremendous responsibility to God. And God creates everybody, and he creates everything constantly. Everything that you see is a big miracle, and he creates everything and creates us so that we should improve everything. And in order to improve things, you have to be inspired. You have to have an inspiration of loyalty and you say identification. You have to identify, right? If you read in the news that there's problems in France, there's problems in Russia, there's problems here. So that's not nice. But you find out that there's problems. You read it in your hometown, on your street, right? The closer that it gets to you, the more excited you are. So the same thing is also here. The Rebbe is trying to tell us there's problems right next to us. That's the world. And the world is in our hands, and we have to fix it up by doing good. That's why we fix it up. Not to worry, but we should be inspired. And we should be also, inspired that we have to do something, and inspired, empowered that we know we can do it. So what are we supposed to do? We have to learn, first of all, what to do. So the Rebbe here is giving us an advice. He's giving us an advice, and he's saying that, first of all, you have to learn from everything in the world sends us messages about what to do. The classic case was the one of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was arguably the greatest of all of the Tanaim, all of those who authored the Mishnah. And Rebbe Akiva, until he was like 40 or whatever, 80, whatever year, he was totally illiterate. And he was also very, low IQ. He just couldn't get things. He's learning, he would forget, and he wouldn't understand what he did learn. And the little bit that he did understand, he would forget. And he was very dejected because he wanted to learn. He really understood that the Torah was the word of God, and that he wanted to learn it, and he wanted to teach it, and he couldn't, he just wouldn't. So he went into a field, and he was sitting there just alone, just to try to collect his thoughts, didn't know what to do, all depressed and sad. And suddenly he heard a dripping sound. He heard a ticking sound. We're talking about 1,800 years ago, 1,900 years ago. And he heard this ticking sound, tick, tick. And he looked and he saw that there was water dripping down from some place, from a hill or something. And it was dripping on a rock, and it had made a hole in the rock where it fell. And he checked, he saw that the rock was very hard. And he said, if something as soft as water, just by perseverance, can make a hole in something that's so hard, as for sure the Torah, that's so powerful, can make an impression on something that's so soft like my mind and my heart. And he set himself to learning, and he did, and he became one of the greatest of the greats. So in other words, he learned a message, an inspiration from a rock, from water. It was and so it is that we can, and there's a story that the Baal Shem Tov said that if a worm walks along and a leaf falls from a tree on that worm, it gives it what to eat, is that that's God's divine intervention. So from that, we can learn how much God is involved and cares about everything. So we can learn from everything there is in the world, we can learn something positive, to be more loving, to be more caring, to be more optimistic, to be less lazy, to be less vindictive, to be less, what is it called? Vengeful. Okay, so to be more helpful. So the Rebbe says, if we can learn that from the world, for sure we can learn from the Torah, because the word Torah means teaching, and it's given by God. The Torah is given by God in order to teach us. That's the whole purpose of it. And not just to teach us in general, but to teach us about every single detail. And true, it's given to the Jews, but the Jews are here in order to improve the whole entire world. So not everything in the Torah is useful to all mankind, right? All the commandments, keeping Shabbat and things like that. It says non-Jews are not supposed to keep Shabbat, but there's so many other things, thousands of positive things that are there that you wouldn't know if they weren't written in the Torah. And here's one of them. So the Rebbe said, if every detail in the world is important, how much more so every detail in the Torah? And how much more so the name of an entire Torah portion? And even though those names of the Torah portions weren't given by God, but they were accepted by the Jewish people and they become like the Torah. So it has a very big message to us. So what's the name of this week's Torah portion? Emor. Emor means to speak. So it's saying you should speak. So what are you supposed to speak? The Rebbe said, well, it already says, there's a lot of times in the Torah, in different places, and especially in Pirkei Avot, in the ethics of the fathers, where it talks about teaching. And in the Torah also, it says you should say words of Torah. You should speak words of Torah. It says you should say the words of Torah day and night. And other places in Pirkei Avot, it says, but you shouldn't speak too many, how do you say, mundane things. Limit your speech. And even more, it says even teachers that teach, when they teach, they should teach in the most precise way as possible, not to be too verbose. So there's a lot of places where it talks about speech and speaking, not speaking too much and not speaking to the wrong people, and to watch what you say. You shouldn't say bad things. But what is it speaking about here? And more. So the Rebbe said, well, let's look at the Rambam. Let's look at Moses ben Maimon. He has all these laws, and he also talks about speaking. That's also part of it. Now, who was Moses ben Maimon? Who was he? There's a saying that from Moses until Moses, there was no one like Moses. Moses ben Maimon, he was like, I don't know, 800 years ago, 850 years ago. Moses was 3,300 years ago. So in that whole course of those years of, 2,800 years, which that includes all of the prophets and all of the great wise men, people of the great assembly. And there were the people who were the Tanaim, there were the Amoraim, what's called the Gaonim, the Rishonim. These people were genius, holy people that could do miracles and things like that. There was nobody like Moses ben Maimon. How could that possibly be? So the Rebbe talked about that a lot. But the point is that he was able to learn the whole entire Talmud and to distill from the Talmud the laws what to do. And there's a lot of places where people disagree with him. There are people that disagree with him, but of course it has to be only people that are either to his level or that have like really good proofs that can draw from others that are to his level. So basically what he says is like the last word in Judaism if nobody disagrees with it. If no one disagrees with it. And there's a lot of things that he says that everyone agrees with. Of course, you have to understand the Torah was given to be learned and to be debated. If you've ever learned the Talmud, so you know the whole thing is just filled with debates. And sometimes there's 5, 7, 10 opinions on differing opinions on the same topic. And it says all of those opinions are the word of God. God wants there to be these arguments. So arguing in Judaism is a good thing. Asking questions is wonderful. Not necessarily does Judaism depend on the answers. Questions, there's a lot of questions we can ask on God. You know, why do Jewish people have to suffer? But nevertheless, asking questions is good. Okay, so here we go. We have a big question over here. What does it mean that there must be a very major message here to speak? So the Rebbe says what it means to speak. It says that the Talmudic scholars, that they know how to learn merit, lilmod zechut. Done at kol adam lekaf zechut. You must judge everyone to the side of merit. The Rebbe says, oh, what does this mean? It means you're always supposed to say good things about people. You're not supposed to say bad things about people. That you don't have to have anyone new to tell you. But here it says, you have to judge everyone to the side of good. Obviously means a person that you have to make an effort to judge him to the side of good. In other words, you see that there's things that this person does or says or feels, expresses, whatever, that are not good. And nevertheless, you have to judge him and say good things about him. Zok the Rambam says that a Talmud Chacham, the Talmudic scholars, darf sich führen as you have to do, is soll sein Ruach Habrios Nocha Mimenu. That you have to do this, in other words, so that others will benefit from you, that they'll enjoy being around you. Therefore, you have to speak pleasantly with all people. It says people who learn the Torah, Talmudic scholars, they have to be very careful to only speak positively and pleasantly with others. And therefore, Kumta always comes out that the difference between a Talmud Chacham, between people who learn Torah, and everybody, in their yachas, in their relationship, their treatment, to einom, to a person, was hataganus, which has something bad. The shad menzet, when you see by its fate another person, a davar bilti ritzui, something that's not good. Darf mentan, you have to do alts, everything. Also, as man can, everything you can, to mavatal sein, to eliminate that bad thing. Das can aber getan. You can only do this. This can be done in one of two ways. Right? You see someone doing something not good. There's a lot of things that happen in the world. Now, again, Judaism is responsibility. The essence of Judaism is that we are responsible for the whole world, but at least the area that's around us. If you see somebody that's doing something bad and you think that you can have some sort of an effect on that person, that he can stop doing it, so you should try to influence him to change his ways. There's two ways of doing it. Dervos is nit kein Talmud Chacham, a person that is not a Torah scholar that sits and learns the Torah. Udariber, therefore, must by him, zayin betachlis eshlemus, tanhaga from Ruach Habrios, Anocha Mimenu, and therefore he has to really be careful that he should be pleasant around everyone. It's not natural to him. As Izer Moshiach loidarki Torah, oiftem chet v'ovim. He goes to the other person and he tells him, according to the ways of the Torah, in other words, in private and pleasantly, what he's doing wrong and that he thinks he should improve. But a Talmud Chacham, but a person who learns the Torah, the Rebbe's, this is continuing what it said yesterday, that the Rambam in Hilchos Deos, he talks about right in the beginning of the Rambam, the Maimonides, it's 14 volumes, right? And it covers all the laws of the Torah. But in the beginning, he's talking about character traits that people should have, according to the Torah. beliefs that people should have, that's previously what you should believe about God. And then after that, what these beliefs in God should cause in your character traits, how you should be pleasant, and how you should be honest, how you should be, etc. So he says one chapter that Torah scholars should be nice and pleasant with everybody, and they should speak presently. And the next chapter, he says, and everyone else should be nice and pleasant. So he says it's almost the same thing. What's the difference? So the Rebbe takes little details and he says like this. Our Torah portion is telling us how to speak to people that you see are doing wrong things and that you can correct them. You have an obligation to correct them. One way is by speaking to them in a pleasant way, talking to them, that's everybody, normal people, normal Jew. But a Talmid Chacham, a person who's a Torah scholar, was Diboro, Darv Zayin Benachas, that he has to speak pleasantly with everybody. He is Mevatel Ganuso Shofavero, then he has to try to rid his friend, his fellow man, of his mistakes in a pleasant way. What's a pleasant way? There is Mesaper B'Sheva Chabero below Geberusa Kolo. He has to say good things about him. Was there Etzem Sipur, but saying good things, this reveals the good in the other one. And there's a person that's a normal, you see someone doing something wrong, he's making a mistake, you want to improve him. The guy has a bad temper. You take him aside and you say, listen, I like you, you're a nice person, but you get angry, it's not good. You see a person is a liar. He's stingy. You take him aside and say, listen, if you tell the truth, I see that sometimes you lie, you say things that aren't so. Maybe you don't want to do it. Maybe if you say the truth, believe me, you'll get along. Believe me, it'll be okay. You don't have to cheat, you don't have to lie. You say it in a nice way. You see a person that he's lazy. You talk to the person in a nice positive way. Listen, I'm sure you'll enjoy life more, if you spend more time out of your bed, less time under the covers. You say something pleasant to him, nice. But that's a regular person. But a Talmid Chacham, he doesn't mention the bad at all. All he does is say good things. Zayin and Milas Tovas, he just speaks about his good about the other person. And that itself will cause the inyan of inyan shel ganos v'nechlash. This will weaken the bad in the other person. Instead of saying, you have a bad temper, you say, listen, I see you're a really kind person. You're really, kind. If you yell at somebody, it makes them feel bad, and that's not that. That's you're a person that your essence is really good. You're a wonderful influence on people, especially when you speak in a calm, nice way. You say good that you're intelligent. Now we're not talking about flattery. We're not talking about flattering a person because you're not looking for any personal benefit from this. You're only looking at the other person that he should improve himself. I'll do it like it says like this. It says, Lashon Hora. Speaking bad things about other people, damaging things. What do the rabbis say? The rabbis say, a triple tongue kills 3 people. That's what it says. A triple tongue kills 3 people. But it's in the Talmud in Arachim. A triple tongue kills 3 people. What's a triple tongue? Who does it kill? It says, first of all, it's a triple tongue. Why is it triple? Because you're doing bad. You're speaking to someone and he's listening to you and you're speaking about someone. So there's speaking negative words, damaging words. There's always 3 that are involved, right? The one who's speaking, the one who's listening, and the one that they're talking about. It says that kills 3 people. It kills those 3 people that are involved. The one who says it, the one who receives it, and the one that is spoken about. Says the Rebbe, okay, L'cheora, at first glance, das was Lashon Hora, that when you say bad things about someone, it damages the one who speaks. Because he's doing a sin. And also damages the one that listens. Why? Because he's participating in this sin. He's encouraging this person, yes, I'm listening to you. because both of them, they have a part in this transgression of speaking bad things and accepting them. And it says, and not only that, it's not just a regular sin, it's a terrible sin. It says it's equal to the idolatry and sexual crimes, licentious decadence, and murder. It says that Lashon Hora is as bad as idolatry and licentiousness, right? From promiscuity, whatever and murder. Speaking bad. So we can understand why those two people, that they're speaking bad things, one is encouraging the other by listening and the other is speaking. So they get punished. But why should the person who they're speaking about get punished? He's not doing anything. And he didn't take any part in the sin whatsoever. Why does the Torah say that he gets killed also? So you can say, well, because his reputation is destroyed or something. The Rebbe says something a little bit deeper. Is there beer in them? The explanation is this. The Engschaft from Dibur, the result of speaking, is a roist zu bringen, an inyan from Helim, to bring something out from thought to reveal it. What is speech? Speech, you have something in your mind. The other person doesn't know what you're thinking. In order to reveal your thoughts, you have a mouth and you speak through your mouth. Und the Rebbe, so therefore, because speech, in other words, is to reveal things that were hidden. And the Rebbe, therefore, when men read it, when you're speaking about a person and you say something bad about that other person, und me bringt es the Giloid, and you reveal it in speech, is thus allo to shatten jener. This is a shatten. This can damage the other person. Why? Wenn me wollt wegen dem nicht correct, because if you would not have spoken, said these bad things about the other person, ra efshar geblieben, it would have remained concealed. When it's nit a roisum, the totza'ah bilti ritzoy, it wouldn't have this negative effect. What's the Rebbe saying? By saying bad things about the other person, this brings out the bad from the other person, even if the person's not there. You have brought into the world the fact that, let's say we're talking about Shmerel, right? And I say Shmerel is a thief. Now, it could be that the fact is that Shmerel really is a thief. It could be that he is, right? And it could be that maybe I'm making it up. Maybe he really isn't. But however it was, before I said that, it wasn't as revealed in the world as it is now. Now, it's true, let's say, if someone comes up to me and says, listen, I want to loan Shmerel $10,000, I can say, listen, don't do it. He's not going to pay the money back, right? Why isn't he going to pay the money back? Because he's a liar. He lies, he can't do it. But I'm telling you this because it's practical. You want to loan him money, I'm saving you from a loss. But you can't go around and just tell people in general, you know what happened to me? I loaned this guy Shmerel money, and this guy didn't pay me back. What a thief, And someone says, well, that's Lashon Hora, you're saying bad things about him. I said, no, I'm trying to save everybody else that you shouldn't give him money. The Chafetz Chaim wrote a book called Chafetz Chaim. It's the laws of speaking Lashon Hora. It's a thing a person has to be very careful about. But here the Rebbe is saying why. When you say something bad about someone, that brings that bad into revelation. Before, it was just potential. Everybody has inside of them potential bad, and everyone has inside of them potential good. There's a known general principle. Mida tova meruba memida peronis. A good thing is stronger than a bad thing. A little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness, right? A little bit of light. You have a huge, huge room, all the lights go out, After a couple of minutes, everybody starts getting scared. What's going on? One person lights a little light, makes everybody feel better. Right? A little candle doesn't make any difference. Everybody feels a little bit of light. A little bit of good is more powerful than bad. Is madach, as thus read it vegan at sveitas ganos, if you're speaking something bad, so if you speak something bad about him, as a shlechter virkon has a negative effect on the other person, because it brings out the bad from that other person. He doesn't even know you're talking about him, but his negativity has been brought into the world by your speech. It pulls it out. So if that works by bad things, how much more so, because we said good is more powerful than bad. If you say good things about other people, as be'ez men read it, if you're talking about another person good, un milos and high things, that is a varaya guta virkon, it'll do something good, them velcha me them velcha meloib, the person that we're speaking about. What the word loibt, I really don't know what it means. Believe. I guess that's right, the person you're speaking about. As gitim, and it gives the person a chizuk, a power, a siu and a help to sein avoda in his service. Men bringt the rois begiloi und Paul sein tov and sein milos. It brings in revelation that the person is good. So what's the Rebbe saying? There's a person on the other side of the world, and you say good things about him, that brings out the good in that person. The Rebbe, like I said last time, the Rebbe used to say, I do not say bad things about people. The Rebbe never said anything bad about people, but he would say bad things about ideas, about actions. Right? Why are you giving land you're making deals with the Arabs to give them back land? It's counterproductive, it's ridiculous, doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't say that Rosh Memshala, that guy, whatever it is, Sharon, Begin, whoever it is, what is he doing these foolish things for? Or he'll say, what is he doing that for? He won't say he is an evil person, he's a bad person. Saying he's making a mistake by saying this, by doing this. So talking about things, talking about ideas, then there's what to argue about, right? I think that's a good thing he did. I think it's a bad thing he did. But you don't have to say that this person is bad. Even if he really is bad. There were two people that Rebbe said that they were bad, they were evil. They said Arafat, he said, and he said another time by Stalin, maybe Hitler. I don't even think he mentioned what his name is. But it's very rare because these people were the embodiment of evil, and speaking bad about them could not make them worse than they were. And speaking good about them wouldn't help them. But except for that, saying good things about people brings out the good. And the person doesn't even have to be there. This is not a psychological thing. This is a spiritual thing. Okay, so just saying good things brings it out into the world, and that brings out good for the other person. And more, say good things. There's something even deeper. Lashon around the land, it says you shouldn't, let's go back to the language of the Rambam. He says you shouldn't speak, he says a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, he should speak good things about others, and he shouldn't speak bad at all. Why does he have to say don't say bad at all? It just finished saying speak only good. Why does he have to say don't say bad at all? Why does he have to add that? Kumt Lunas comes to teach us that a Talmid Chacham, which he does this thing of judging everyone to the positive side, is in the end, sof, in the end, zeter ibur hoip nit ganus by Chavero. It says, but after all, he doesn't see, right, is sof zeter ibur hoipt nit ganus shel Chavero. He doesn't see the bad in his friend. Vet men es verstehen, we can understand, durch a Tosfos beer. Let's explain this. I'm sorry, I'm skipping something here. The Maimer done is called out on the Kav Sechus. And get just one Maimer. A Talmud Chacham is Makayim, this is done, everybody, the Kav Sechus. Get a boy, is sov zet iber hoipt nit ganus by Chavero. Okay, it must be that in the end, he doesn't see any bad in the other person. In the beginning, he's talking about that you do see bad things, but you judge him to the side of good. We're talking about that he doesn't speak bad at all means that in the end, he's going to rid this person totally of any bad things. Let's see. Vetman, we can understand by an additional explanation what it means judge everyone to the side of good. The Alter Rebbe explains, the first Rebbe explains in the Tanya, what it says in the language of the rabbis, Alta Donet Chavero. This is in chapter 30, right? What is this? Right, in the beginning of chapter 30, it says, of the Tanya, that what it says over there, you should have to be humble in front of everybody. It says, I should be humble in front of everybody. There's people who are doing bad things. I have to be humble in front of them. It says, how do you know it's bad things? It says, don't judge your friend until you reach his place. It could be that this person is very good, but the reason he's doing bad things is because, for instance, Parnasaso, the only way he can make a living is that he has to go in the marketplace. And there he sees all sorts of negative things and all sorts of the tempting things, and gives him bad thoughts and bad ideas. According to this, Al Pizeh, Yeshlomur, we can say, as oich dem inyan vert nichlal in dem maimer donis kolaram tkavsachus. That what it says, judging a person to the side of merit, doesn't mean that you see bad things in the other person, but you nevertheless say only good. This means that when you see something bad in someone else, as b'shas men zet yenem, when you're saying that a person does something that's not good, as darv men gefinen, you have to find a reason why he's not guilty for doing this thing. In them, begegen is davar lotov, in that thing that you met up with, that you saw that it's not good. Even though, as their beer, this explanation, Nemta Rav takes away the punishment from the guilt by the other person, because you say, listen, he's not guilty, he is under duress, right? That's why he did those bad things, because he's forced. So therefore, he's not guilty for what he did. But nevertheless, how is it judging him for the top zechut? That you have to find that it's good, right? You saw that the person was cheating other people. You saw the guy lost his temper, screaming, he punched somebody, did something terrible. So you say, listen, he did a bad thing. But you think to yourself, listen, the reason he did that is probably because this other person cheated him, because of this, because maybe his parents, his bad upbringing, he has a terrible nature, his temper. But still, the fact is you're judging him for good, but you're not seeing good. Right? You're not seeing good. You're just giving excuses why he shouldn't be punished for this bad thing. So what does it mean to judge him and see good? Is there beer? The explanation is when a person sees that a Jew, and that God put this Jew in a tremendous, how do you say, test. V in their dugma, like we said in the Parnasa, Leich Beshuchi is going on the marketplace. Oh, I'll tell you a good story. I'll tell you the story. Now I got the story to tell you. As does Gufa, this is an indication that God, that God, Velcha is Mavakesh, nor Lefikocho, that God only requests, he puts us in situations that we can always solve. Hat im frier gegeben. So therefore, if you see a person is in a tremendous test, a situation, he's in the street and he's not passing this test, he's losing his temper, he's going wild, he's doing bad things. So you have to know that what? The reason this person is doing these bad things is because he's not utilizing the power and the abilities that God gave him. So Kenan, by Kuman, that he should be able to overcome this shver and nisyonis, these big tests. Right? People are making him angry. And there's a story that says, this is not the story I wanted to tell you. One second, I want to make this bigger. Oh. that once there was a congregant in a synagogue that had a bad temper. And the rabbi went up to him and said to him, listen, I just made a bet with whatever is it, Chaim Grois. He says, Chaim Grois, oh, I hate that guy. I can't stand him. I was, listen, I just made a bet with him that you won't lose your temper. That I can talk to you and I can convince you, and then I'll say a couple words and you won't lose your temper. He said, no. $10,000, this guy cannot control himself. He says, you'll give a $10,000 donation to the synagogue. Yes, if he doesn't lose his temper. He says, okay. So he says, listen, you want this guy Grois to win? No, I don't want him to win. He says, well, tomorrow I'm going to do something that's should really make you mad. I'm going to shame you in front of the whole entire congregation, and you take it easy. You don't get angry. He said, okay, Rabbi, it's good. We'll do it. So the next day he calls him up to the reading of the Torah. Says, Ya'amod, he calls this person up. The rabbi says, no, just 1 minute. I don't want to call you. I'm going to call my son instead. All the people in the congregation, what's this going on, the rabbi? In front of everybody, he calls them up. He tells them to go down. And how can it possibly be? He said, not only that, I think you have a little bit too much power in the synagogue. You have a little bit, everybody's waiting for this guy to get angry. He always loses his temper, to say, I'm leaving the synagogue. I'm never coming back. He said, okay, Rabbi, maybe you're right. Everybody's just amazed, right there. And then they come up to him afterwards and they're patting him on the back. Wow, you really held yourself back. I don't know what happened to the rabbi. He said, no, the rabbi had a hard day yesterday. I understand 100%. Everybody said, so the rabbi afterwards goes, no, did the Grois give the $10,000? He says, there was no $10,000. I made that story up. So what, you made the story up? He said, yeah, I wanted you to see that you can control your anger. Right? You're always losing it and always yelling at people. But I wanted to show you that if for $10,000, right, you can control yourself, how much more so, right, because of I say, so how much more so God says it's forbidden to lose your temper. God is telling you. And the reward is much greater. He said, okay, Rabbi, I understand. I got it. I can. In other words, a person that has a bad character trait, for sure, God gave him the power to withstand that. God gave him and when you say good things about a person, 1 second. When you say good things about a person, that brings out the good. The limit zechus is nitno. It's not just giving a reason why this person should not get punished, right? He slapped somebody in the middle of shul. They caught him stealing. Or whatever, the saying, listen, he's got problems, he has his problems at home, at a difficult upbringing. This is not just saying reasons, right, that he's not guilty, but rather, says the Rebbe, this brings out a roisbrach, and this brings out the zechut, the good thing, which is inside of him, hidden inside of the person, this power that he has to overcome those difficulties. Genoigana are sufficient by common that he will be able to overcome any difficulties. In other words, what are you saying? By saying good things, you pull out from him powers and abilities that he'll change himself totally. You pull out the zechut. When das is the tochen, that's what it means, that you should judge everyone to the positive side. What does it mean? That which a Jew learns, says good things, and judges another person positively, this is revealing in the second person, it reveals powers which that person has in order that he will actually be good and overcome the different frustrations and temptations and tests and difficulties that are in the world. And finally, in the end, it will be zechut. He'll only do good. When das is what the Rambam says, that's what the Rambam says, that a Talmud Chacham, that he has to judge everyone positively, and he has to also say good things about everybody and not bad things. Why does he have to add not bad things? Because he's saying a person who's really a true Talmudic scholar and he learns the Torah, what's his done is called the kav zechut, and it's proved by the fact that he judges everybody positively. Let's see if somebody's waiting. No, no one's waiting. Okay. Oh, yes, there is. I'm sorry, I didn't see you were waiting, but that witty ways, I'll give you a little rundown of what we just finished saying. A true Torah scholar, and that he judges everybody positively, namely what? Because he says, as far wandelt as zechut, as he knows that in the end, the bad things about the other people really is really good. It's concealed. What does it mean it's good, concealed? That God he's just not utilizing the hidden powers that God gave this person to overcome the tests that he had, the depression and the aggression. He has these. By saying good things, it brings the good out from the other person, even if that person is not there. We're not talking about psychological. The Rebbe says that if you say bad things about someone, that brings out the bad. Even if that person is not there, that's called Lashon Hora. It harms the person that it's spoken about. And if you say good things about a person, even if that person is not there, then spiritually it brings out, just like your word brought into reality what was in your thought, so your good words bring out to reality the potential good which is in the other person. It's cooking dick oif by looking at the difficult tests and tribulations that another person here says, then you can see if this person has big tests that make him so angry, it must be that there's a tremendous soul powers which are concealed and which can be revealed. This includes also the praise of your friend. By praising him. So by praising him, it brings it out. Therefore, it says that he says only good things about others, and he doesn't say anything bad at all. In other words, even though there is bad, but he only realizes that because there's bad in this person. Why? Because it must be that there's tremendous good hidden inside of him, and he's not using it. Why? Because it's not revealed. I'm going to reveal it by talking about it. And as I said before, it doesn't even have to be that you're talking about it in front of that person. There's a very general principle in Judaism, and we talked about this before, that man is tremendous, has tremendous powers for good. And not just physical good or emotional good or psychological good, that even that he can do good in the whole entire world. One good deed can enlighten the whole entire world, can tip the whole entire world to the side of merit. The whole world can improve. Here you can see even more. God chose the Jewish people that we're the ones that have to bring blessing into the world. How many Jews are there, right? How many Jews are there? There's 8+ billion people in the world, and there's 20 million Jews at the most, 30 million, who knows how many there are. But nevertheless, it's only a small percentage. What is it? 0.1% or something of the world, 0.2% of the whole world's population is Jews, and we're supposed to fix it up. And how many of those Jews are actually religious Jews, are not affected by? So the Rebbe here is always speaking about the praise and the good and the holiness of the Jewish people that's there potentially. By the Rebbe, it's there potentially. It's there actually, but it just has to be revealed. Says the Rebbe, this also works individually. You know somebody that's having difficulty, say good things about him. You know somebody that's acting not properly, say good things about him. Now, as I said before, some people came in the middle of the class. That does not mean if someone comes up to you and says, listen, I'm going with Shmerel Groisboich, we're going into a business deal together. I'm putting up $1 million. He's going to make decisions. You can say to him, listen, don't do it. I know this guy. He's not honest. He's a con man. He's just tricking you. He's addicted to lying. Can't keep away from it, right? So in those cases where you're saving someone, you're helping something, you can say bad things about another person, but only insofar as it is relevant to that precise case. You can't say any more than that. And you can also, at that same time, you can say good things about him. Listen, it's a terrible test for him. I know that it is. He's essentially a very good person, and he's very this. He just has one little problem with lying, with anger, with cheating, with laziness. And it's only when it's relevant to that particular case. Und das is the hara, this is the teaching from Emor. This week's Torah portion, Emor. What does it mean, Emor? Speak. You should go out of your way. If dar ständig sein, it has to constantly be. Ubariboy, and you have to do it not only just once in a while. It has to constantly be, and to do with, with quantity. The Amira from the Saper B'Sheba Chaveru, by saying good things about every single Jew, about every single person as much as possible. But especially we're talking about the Jewish people. If the Jewish people don't have it together, then the whole world is in bad shape. Even by a person that you see bad things about him, but you have to judge for the side of good. Because by speaking and saying good things is a zoy was the etzem, amira, just the fact that you say good things, this brings about, like we said before, the word of God. Just like the word of God creates the world, and we are made in the image of God. So similarly, tut oif the Welt, this causes also, this speaking, when you say good things from one Jew about another Jew, is when you say good things about him, this reveals the good which is concealed. And this is fit to what the rabbis say, and Rashi says, with the beginning of Parshas Amor va'amarta. It says, Amor el bnei Yisrael kohanim va'amarta alehem. That's how it begins. The God said to Moses, told Moses, say to the Kohanim, and say to them, Amor va'amarta. Say to 2 times Amor. What does it mean? Why 2 times Amor? It says this is to warn, to tell the elders about the children. In other words, not just to speak to them, but also to tell the Kohanim that they should tell their children to act this way also. But the Rebbe is saying this is not just the Kohanim, this is speaking to every Jew. And every Jew to warn, Lazhir, the word to warn also means to make light. Zohar is Milashon Zohar va'or. Thus come to learn, this comes to teach us, as they're often the way from Gedolim. Gedolim means the big people, the great people. Doesn't mean that you have to be older in age. This means a person that's a little bit more aware of his responsibility in the world. Darfen sich, you have to deal, you have to occupy yourself by small people. What does it mean, small people? Small people that don't feel or not aware of their potential and their responsibility to the world. Well, in other words, we have to encourage others. Was das is oich kolel. This also includes, when it says big people and small people, this also includes, one moment, Gedolim and Katanim, big people and small people, big people and small people in the level that they are in serving God. Make it a little bigger here. Yeah. If Oifstein Zay from Devorin Bilti Ritzoim, in order to stop them from doing bad things, it's not a Zoy Durich Farnemen sich mit dem Ra. It's not by means of dealing with the bad things, like a commandment. Kehat Sivoy as noch small yad doche. It says the right hand has to make close and the left hand has to push away. Says the Rebbe, good. You see something bad, says the Rebbe, there's 2 ways of doing it. Either go to the person, you see something bad, and say to him in a nice way, you're doing something bad. But here the Rebbe is suggesting another way. Only good. Nor is darv zayin in an ofen, it has to be in a way, lahazhir. It says to warn, but the word hazhir also means to make light, to illuminate, make bright. Zohar ba'or. Like it says, you have to use only good. During Megalazan, the Tov, by means of revealing the essential good, which is found by the small people, in other words, the people who are not yet aware of their potential for good, or they have not yet revealed this potential for good, and that'll be lahazhir. You have to reveal, make shine. Azir means to warm, but it also makes to make shine the inner good which is in the other person, that it should also be illuminating others by themselves and by others. So in other words, the good in you should be brought out into speech in order to talk about the good which is in others, and that will reveal their good also. So when you reveal the good which is in you, you become what's called a big person, and that enables you to say good things about others. Those people who have not yet revealed it, they're called small. And that reveal lazhir means to warm, but it also means to make light. Now we can also understand why the Torah portion is called emor. Emor. And why isn't it called daber ala kohanim? A lot of times when God says daber Hashem Moshe Lamor daber ben Israel daber, it says the word daber means to speak, and emor also means to speak, but emor means to speak in a very kind way, a very, how do you say, gentle way. The chiluk zwischen these two languages, dibor and amira, is dibor is harsh. Say exactly what has to be said. Be precise. Was das mean? This means in a way from vernehmen sich the shviras hara, means to get rid of bad things. Speaking, I say, sharply. That's dibur, which is not the case. The word emor. Emor is raka. It's what's called easy, gentle speaking, and its whole thing is not to get rid of the bad, but to reveal the good in the other person. And this in such a way that the bad will go away on its own. They say that there used to be that Aaron HaKohen, that he was Rodef Shalom. He ran after peace. What does it mean? He would lie. He would lie. What would he do? He would go up to a person and he would say, a person that had an argument with somebody else. So you just had a big argument with Beryl. I said, yeah, you barely should drop dead. I said, listen, but I just spoke to Beryl. And he said, yeah, don't even talk to the guy. And he just said he's really embarrassed, that he really feels bad that you don't like him and that you really are justified not liking him. He really did bad things and he really feels bad. What? Beryl said that? That's what he said. He said, yeah, he really likes you and he really admires you, but sometimes he just loses it. He doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel good. He said, he admires me? Are you talking? No, Beryl really never said that. He never said it. But Aaron lied. He said, yeah, he said that to you. And he would like it very much if you could meet tomorrow in front of the show and speak. He wants to apologize. He wants to apologize to me. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. That's what he said to me. Tomorrow to meet. If that's what he said, I don't believe it, but okay. Then Aaron would go over to Beryl and he said, I just talked to Yehuda. He says, oh, Yehuda, don't even mention his name by me. I hate that person. So he said, listen, he really regrets what he said. And he said that he really, really likes you and he really admires you. What are you talking about, admires me? You know what he said yesterday? He said, listen, it's because he has this condition, sometimes. But he says that he cries at night about the bad things he says to you, not just to you, but other people, but especially, he really said that? Really, did he? And he didn't say it. And by means of that, he would bring them together and meet. They would hug each other and they would. So what does it mean? They both had potential love inside of them, but they had to bring it out. How? By saying good things. They say also by Aaron that if he saw a person that did a bad thing, he would come to the person and put his arm around them and talk to him. Just talk to him. How are you feeling today? How is the business going? How is everything? And the person says, in a second, he's going to give it to me on the head because I punched the sextant out, the president of the shul. I slapped him in the face. He's going to probably give it to me now. And Aaron doesn't say anything about it. Aaron would go and he'd say, well, Aaron is such a great person. He's so wonderful. And he's befriending a low life like me. He must see something in me that I don't see in myself. And he would bring it out. In other words, to bring out the good in everyone. Because it's there. And it says it's even permissible to lie for peace. To bring out the good things. You have to be careful with it, but nevertheless, it's according to what we said before. So now we can understand the connection with what we said before and more to the Rebbe Marash. The Rebbe Marash, he was born in the beginning of this month. Beit ear. That's what it happened to fall out. It fell ois in them vach from Parshas Emor. What's the story of Rebbe Marashi? He was the fourth Rebbe of Chabad. And he had a saying, which he's known for. He said, the world says is that if you can't go under, so you should jump over. And I say that you should initially, right from the beginning, jump over. Well, what's he talking about? What's he talking about? The world is filled with problems, difficulties, intimidation. What are people going to say? What are people going to think? This thing is not going to work. I won't be able to do it. No one's going to listen to me. I won't go. And then you make all sorts of plans, how, what you're going to do. So some people say that you should go under. In other words, I'm going to get to the bottom of all the problems. And I say, and then if it doesn't work under, so then you ignore the problems and just jump over. And I say that from the beginning, you should jump over. In other words, you should be aware of the situation, what the situation is, but the solution to solving, to bringing godliness into the world is not to deal with all of the problems and difficulties, just to jump over the problems and do good. That's what the fourth Rebbe said. One of the difference between going under and jumping over your problems and serving God is going under means that we deal with the world, the problems in the world, the difficulties in the world. That we're going to overpower the bad things and to come to, and then you do hard work. He said, no, I'm sorry. That's right, that you have to work hard and you get rid of the problems. I'll tell you a little story about this also, the little story within a story. The Chachila Rebbe, when the fourth Rebbe of Chabad said you have to jump over the problems, this means that from the beginning, you should deal with only what God wants. Jump over the problems. Think only about good. Add good. Like the Rebbe said, we learned in the afternoon, put an aleph into the exile, put aleph into Gola. Don't deal with all the bad things. Just put good in, and you'll see that everything changes. As the ra, that the bad will be negated automatically, right? Like Aaron came and put his arm around this person that was bad. The fact that Aaron was so good, it made this person look at himself in a totally different light. Said the Rebbe, that's the whole point. I'll tell you a little story. This itself is a story within a story, but I used to fly a lot more to America. I had a yeshiva, and we were in a building. We had to gather money, and I also had a Chabad house. I gathered money. So anyway, I used to go to. So I got this thing that I said, listen, every time I'm on a plane that's going to Israel or from Israel, I'll stand up and ask people to put on tefillin. Okay, so in the beginning, when I did it, I had tremendous inner battles, whether to do it or not. What are people going to say? It's not going to work. No one's going to want to put on. I'm going to be bothering people and this. And then I would fight a battle. I would say, yeah, I will, I won't. And then I would take the tefillin out of the bag. I had it on the over, the over whatever thing. I would take the tefillin and I would say, should I use it? Should I not use it? And finally I would force myself and I would ask somebody to put on tefillin and somebody would put on, that would be good. So finally I decided that, all these arguments, these inner arguments are, they're taking up my time. So I decided what I'm going to do is like this. I'm going to agree with all the arguments. I would sit down and I would say, I would think, I got to put on tefillin. I got to ask people if they want to put on tefillin. You see that it worked the last time. Suddenly I would say, listen, you're tired, go to sleep. You can learn a little bit of Torah. Do that. That'll improve the situation. No one's going to want it. It's going to be a shame. It's going to be an embarrassment. They're going to get all these negative things I used to fight with. I decided I'm just going to agree. You're tired, go to sleep. Right. You're going to get kicked off the flight, 100%. No one's going to want to put on tefillin. You're just going to make people mad. You're just going to argue. You're making a bad name for yourself, for Judaism, for Chabad. You say, right. Then all the reasons would go by. I would stand up and put tefillin on without any reasons. And now I just do it without even thinking about it. Okay, that's the beginning of the story. So I was going, and it was a big LL flight, jumbo, and asking people if they want to put on tefillin. In the back, that's where the the kitchen was or something, there were like 6 or 7 religious young men standing around this fellow that had an earring in his ear, and he had long hair that was like in a ponytail. This I'm talking about, this was like, 20 years ago at least. Had a ponytail and had a little tattoo on his forehead or something. And they were trying to convince him that God really does exist in the Torah, and they were, they had all the reasons and logic and everything like that. And he was listening to this, and I saw all of them that they were talking, and I said to the boy, I just didn't pay any attention to all these other guys. They weren't Chabad people. They weren't Chabad. The other people, not Chabad, they see what Chabad is doing, so they also want to. They realize there's a treasure house, a gold mine of not religious Jews that they can bring to them. They could increase their numbers, whatever. Anyway, so they're trying to convince him that God exists. So, and the boy is saying, no, he's against, he doesn't want. And I just said, I ignored all these people speaking, and I said to them, excuse me, are you Jewish? I said to the fellow with the ponytail. He said, yeah. I said, so put on tefillin. He said, what? I said, put on tefillin. All these fellows looked at me like, anger, what are you doing? What? You're wrecking our whole thing. And he said, oh, okay. And they put on tefillin, and they were just amazing. I could have stood and tried to convince him for days, for weeks, for who knows how long, if he would have been convinced. And maybe I would have convinced him. And then what would be the point? He would put on tefillin. I just said, I'll jump over the whole business, just like I did with myself. I jumped over all of my reservations, and I jumped over. That's what it means as amor. Durch velcha is mevatel. How can we eliminate negative things in the world? How? From a Yidden, an anofim from Lachadchila Rebbe, we have to jump over all the bad, not look at it, and just say good and do good. And time when we occupy ourselves in such a way that this will be a way that's good for heaven and good for people, then it says, Tiferes lo salva, Tiferes lo me'adam. Then it will be pleasant and beautiful for you and for others also. You jumped out of yourself, and you cause others to jump out of themselves to see only the good in themselves. Unemen Tiferes should be Tiferes. That's what's called beauty of beauty. That's when the fourth Rebbe of Chabad was born. He was born in the counting of the Omer, and that was the Sphira. The spiritual aspect of the day was called Tiferet of Tiferet, beauty of beauty. This is the day of the birthday. Done then, in the language of the Rambam, regarding Talmudic scholars, in the end, it will be every single Jew will be, and in the end, every Jew will be in the level of a Talmudic scholar that we promised to call B'nayach Lemudi Hashem, all of your children learning the Torah of God. Then it says, Yisrael Asher Hitpa'er, the Jewish people will then be beautiful. And that's the idea of Moshiach, as I've said and repeated so many times, and I'll keep repeating it until at least I'm convinced that it's true, that Moshiach will bring out the hidden good in everybody. Everyone in the world has hidden good. People use 1% of their mind and close to 0% of their soul. And Moshiach will reveal all of this 99% or 90%, whatever it is, that's not being used. It'll make it use. It'll be just not just a quantitative difference, but a qualitative difference. The world will really come to appreciate the truth of the world. And now we'll learn the Davar Malchut. So what's the Rebbe saying? What's the end point? Say good things about people, even people that aren't here, and it'll bring out the good that there is in them. Nowadays, it's so pleasant that people talk bad about the government and talk bad about this, and there's a lot what to talk about. But meanwhile, it's just dragging us down and our potential for good and everybody's potential for good. Say good things, ignore the bad things, and say good and do good and think good and try to say as much possible about others good, and that'll bring out the good that's in them. All right, now we're going to learn the. Oh, here's Paul. I'm sorry, Paul. You're hiding behind the things. There's a big sign over here. You understand, on the top, and your request to be entered was behind that sign. Okay. I guess I have to look regularly and see who's. Wasn't on purpose. Let's go. Here we go. Let us do the Yom, 1 minute. And then I'll tell you a story. Let's see what we go. Okay.
Rabbi, it doesn't show on your screen when somebody's in the waiting room.
It's behind. See, you don't see it, but there's this big long icon that's on the top that has all these options that I can do. For instance, the pointer is one of them that I can, and there's all these other things I don't even know what they are. But it's a big black thing that covers, the whole middle, like 1/3, but it covers it over in the middle. And when people want to get in, so it's behind that icon. But you don't see it. It doesn't pop up by you.
Right. Like a few months ago, you didn't have this issue. You